What is going on, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to a very special episode of The Kingdom Says. I am your host, as always, Garrett Williams. I am joined tonight by one Mr. Kyle Henning at the top right of the screen. How we doing tonight, Kyle?
I'm here, fellas. I'm trying. We're gonna soldier through this. I'm gonna try and keep the energy up. It's been a very long weekend. It's all running together. I've been at work for a lot of days in a row, and I'm gonna be at work for a lot more days in a row, and I'm pretty tired at the moment. But it was a victory Monday.
Yeah.
Pretty tired at the moment. Hence the reason I am currently drinking energy drink at 7 o'clock at night to be able to function for this podcast. But I'm excited. We are whole once again as a unit.
Yeah.
Everybody's off the injury report and out of the different areas they were in, and the leaves and the breaks. We've all had different times at points that we've had to go do other stuff and whatnot and miss some stuff, and it's nice to have the whole group back now.
Yes, sir. So joining us, making his Kingdom Says return, Mr. ArrowheadTom. How we doing tonight, Tom?
Oh, boys, it is so good to be back and to feel back, to feel excited to be here.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit before we hopped on about like, hey, are we going to acknowledge the fact that this is the first episode I've recorded with you guys this season?
Debut 2024.
Yeah, I'm coming off
the
pup list. The pup, were we at week 6 or is it week? Yeah. So
we're clear. You're pup eligible to return.
Yep. Yeah. So I'll keep it brief just because this isn't the ArrowheadTom show, but I want to just kind of be upfront with everybody just because I think that's important. I talked to Kyle and Garrett a while back before the season started, just about some mental health stuff I was dealing with, and never stuff that you plan, never stuff that you expect. Life can chew you up and spit you out, all that stuff. And it was very apparent that I needed to take the time to get right. To be completely transparent, I wasn't even enjoying watching football at the time. To give you, if you're a listener to the show, I'm yet to watch a 2025 draft prospect this year. So, yeah, to tell you that the struggle was real, it was real. And but I did what you got to do. I talked about it. Took care of myself, did some things, but most of all, I'm gonna just give flowers where they need to be given, and neither of these guys will want that. But Kyle and Garrett were immediately understanding, gave me a lot of space, gave me a lot of understanding, checked in on me. They were my dudes more than they were my podcast hosts. They were my friends first, and that will always mean a ton to me. And then was 2 weeks ago now, we got to do the Monday night game and got to be there all together. And it just reminded me how cool it was to have these friends that I've made through this podcast. And I do want to give one other quick shout out to somebody out there in the content, the Chiefs content world. And I will tell you right now, I do not always agree with his takes, and I do not always agree with his level of things, but I do want to give a shout out to Lance from The Spoken, who checked in on me several times while I was away. Again, I love Lance to death as a human. We might not always agree on his takes. He's gonna say what he's gonna say loud and proud, and I love him for that, even if he's wrong. But more importantly, a good dude, and went out of his way to text me a couple times and check in on me, and I appreciate that. So he doesn't know that I'm giving him that shout out. Actually, Garrett and Kyle didn't know either. So, but they all, these two guys especially were awesome during this whole thing. I got a lot of other people who checked in, showed me love. I appreciate that. But baby, we are back like bra straps. Let's get into it. What a good time to be into it. 6-0. Hopefully not a curse. Hopefully this episode doesn't end up at 6-1 next week. But let's talk about this.
We'll talk about that more later in the week. But there's a quote that goes with the game later in the week, and I believe it was, "That'll get handled when it gets handled."
That will get handled for sure. Yeah.
Which means if they lose next week, they're kicking me off the podcast for
to be confirmed or not, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. No, happy to have Tom back as always.
So excited.
Be all three of us back in the saddle as a whole unit once again to talk
like
Chiefs
balance
football.
Has occurred again.
Yeah.
Garrett and I used to do this show on our own. and that was a
Yeah.
long time ago. And it felt. I'm not gonna lie to you. It felt real weird the first few weeks of this season with just two of us again. It was a bit different again, and I
Yeah.
like this a lot
Yeah,
more.
we missed having
I
the
was
big bearded
underwhelmed.
wonder here.
Yeah, I was underwhelmed with the amount of pot stirring that took place. I was listening. I was like, "Come on, Garrett, poke the bear." Kyle's getting fired up. Say something
Yeah,
mean
now
about
Tom's
McCall.
actually
Come on,
creating
let's
chaos. He knows exactly where to poke Kyle and everybody. Yeah, so
say something mean about McCall Hardman. Come on, get him going. This is a rant from Kyle.
yeah, for real. Yeah, for real. So we're back. We're back here,
Well,
and the Chiefs are undefeated still. The last remaining team in the NFL who's undefeated so far, the 6-0 Kansas City Chiefs, which is crazy. This is actually the first time Patrick Mahomes has been 6-0 in his career. It sure hasn't felt like that. I'll tell you what, this season has been quite the ride up and down, but the Chiefs just keep on finding ways to win, which ultimately is the most important part of football. You know, who cares the stats and the analytics and all the different data points? At the end of the day, we're 6-0 in that win column, and yeah, it's a good time. It's a good time in the kingdom. So, Super Bowl rematch in San Francisco, actually technically Santa Clara. A bunch of frauds using the name San Francisco in their name, 49ers.
have you looked at San Francisco recently? I wouldn't really want to be. Never mind.
Yeah, that's true. Not many people really like to. Yeah, you're right.
Just
But yeah, it was quite a showdown between the two former Super Bowl teams. Obviously, the 49ers looked a lot different than they did in that Super Bowl matchup. The Chiefs had a couple missing faces as well and lost a couple more faces, unfortunately. So it was a real battle of perseverance and struggle, and both teams really had some ups and downs. There's 5 total interceptions thrown in the game, which is kind of crazy. I mean, there's like the first 3 drives, I don't think the ball actually moved within like 20 yards. Like it was in midfield and it just kind of kept on shuffling back and forth. So
A little bit of hot potato. I think everybody came out with a lot of energy, and when you're kind of you're jazzed and juiced like that, it's easy to have those miscues. And I know, I'm sure we'll talk about Pat's turnover stuff, and he talked about it post game. Some of it's been bad luck, but it's something that he's very aware of on his end. But they technically still won the turnover battle. So
yeah, which is the wildest portion of that stat category. But yes, this game was two very good teams that are also entered the game pretty banged up, and both of them left the game more banged up than they entered it, which is not great for really either of them. But it was a largely okay game. Like I know that it was a little hectic there at the beginning of the third quarter as far as like blood pressure level probably in the kingdom after the Purdy sneak for the touchdown.
Got a little tense, yeah.
It got a little close, and then of course Anders Carlson decided to repeat his playoff performance from the year before when he was kicking against the 49ers and doink one. So once the doink happened, everything that happened again from that, like they controlled most of the game, the Chiefs did. Then it got tight after that third quarter because of goofy stuff, and then doink, and then it was over.
And then it was smooth. Yeah, it was pretty smooth.
And the final score made it look closer even than it was, and they still won by 10 points. So
yeah,
one of these days Vegas will stop making the Chiefs underdogs like ever, and I know they don't do it very often, but every time they do, bad things seem to happen to the opposing team that they're playing against when it comes to these things. Patrick continues to add to his psychotic records when he's an underdog. Andy continues to add to his legacy coming out of the bye. All of the things that go on that we talk about routinely when it comes to this team and those kind of scenarios, they just went out and did what we expect them to do again. But it was a rock fight, really. I mean, what if I told you the Chiefs ran the ball for nearly 100 yards more than the 49ers in this game? If I'd have told you that before the game, you'd have told me I was an idiot.
Chiefs ran the ball for a lot of yards. Not even, they ran.
They almost 100 yards. They almost outrushed the Niners by 100 yards. Now, that's a team in Kyle Shanahan that's how they play offense. They just run the ball. Their passing game is entirely based off of running the ball. Jordan Mason had 58 yards.
14
carries, 58 yards. 4.1 average. That's probably, and by the way,
That
that was on one run for 26.
He did have a big one, yeah. That kind of
Otherwise-
ruined the.
I was just saying, I was surprised to hear that he had that many yards. It felt like he was just constantly getting run. Like, and this
Yeah, he had a couple big ones that upped that total, but
13 carries, he averaged 2.46 yards a carry for the other 13 carries.
Yeah, that tracks.
Well, and this has been a discussion on Chiefs Twitter, and not a surprise to anybody who's following this team. What Steve Spagnuolo has done with this team is
phenomenal.
With this defense is exceptional. It is before the season, I think we were talking about roster construction, and I was like, we got to get some defensive tackles. I'd consider that a weak point. You have guys, and Brett Veach deserves love too. Like all these guys. This is a special dynamic between this front office and coaching staff, but you have guys like Turk Wharton, who comes back from injury. You have guys like Mike Pennell, who I don't even know what the hell he was doing between when he came back and the Super Bowl run last year.
Just chilling.
I think, he was still playing football, but he wasn't doing anything, notable.
Just collecting some good paychecks from other franchises, yeah.
Yeah, it's like they've got a bottle of the Looney Tunes, Mike's Magic stuff back there that they just give to these players that come back in the building. But
Garrett made a Fountain of Youth joke last week, and I said it's because City of Fountains of Kansas City. There's got to be a Fountain of Youth underneath that.
Yeah,
underneath that stadium somewhere in the practice facility, because Mike Pennell, like you just mentioned, Juju was cut from the Patriots. McCole could not find the field with the New York Jets.
Whatever he was doing.
Kareem Hunt was not on a roster this season.
Yeah.
Kareem was playing Madden. He was on the couch.
And here we are.
Kareem and I were doing the exact same thing at the start of the season. Let's just be clear.
Playing Madden.
We started the season in the same place. Technically, I could be running back for Kansas City right now, but I'm not. They didn't call me. They called Kareem.
Hey, you still could maybe be wide receiver for him. There might be some openings at wide receiver.
At this point, they might give me a call. But
it's
important to say, like, that run defense, and this is a weird thing to say because it feels like for years, the Chiefs' run defense, I don't remember a time in my lifetime when I felt like, I'm not worried about the run.
Yeah, like 1996.
I wasn't even around that. I wasn't around those times, Yeah, I will say the step up that Steve Spagnuolo has taken this defense each year. I mean, it gets better each year somehow. Like the first couple years, especially with this, this new roster and all the rookies, first 2 Super Bowls, it's like the run defense was okay. It was mostly pass defense and the blitzes and stuff like that. Now it's just core fundamental stuff. They're just winning. Like they are just beating teams over the basics. Like. You see guys like FAU in there who's making a huge step and blowing up some plays. Leo Chanel is in there all the time now. It's like these guys are just fundamentally.
They're lining them up. Not only they're not just in there. They're not just setting the edge on the outside. Some of the guys.
Yeah, no,
they lined AU up at one point over the nose. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Leo's getting snaps at defensive tackle.
Literally, yeah, they're lining him up literally anywhere they want.
Bullying people while he's doing it, also.
But so here's the thing about this defense. I'm going to use this word, and if you work in a corporate setting, you're going to hate me and cringe a little bit. But just work with me. There is a synergy to this defense at every level of people doing their jobs and doing the jobs that aren't fun. George Karlaftis sets the edge.
Dog.
So well. Absolute animal.
He had an insane game.
His stats, I was like, that's not right. But like watching him play, he is ascending beyond even what I would have projected him to be. Again, I want to give love to Turk Wharton. I want to give love to Mike Dana. I know he didn't play last week, but those guys, again, their value that you find. But it's not just that you found them. You believed in them. You gave them time to grow. Malik Herring, there's another one that I want to bring up. How many times does he get out there and set the run and have his run fits and do what he's supposed to do? This linebacker core, Drew Tranquil, Leo. Leo is quickly becoming one of my favorite players because he's linebacker, defensive tackle, defensive end, maybe sometimes safety. I don't know. They just Go find ball, go hit man with ball. And Leo says, yes, sir.
Yeah.
I do have one other quick announcement. Our fourth co-host is here too.
Hi, Scout.
Scout is also here. He wants to say hello. He gets fired up about this defense. The other thing that I think is really intriguing about the way this defense is built is the real weakness of it is the second level, right? In that pass coverage, that Nick Bolton. And so you kind of have to pick and, take the dink and duck, which is really hard to do when Patrick Mahomes is on the other side of the field. So it's a little bit of psychological mistreatment, I think, for offensive coordinators, to go, hey, you got to play this defense. Take what they'll give you.
I've always said that about opposing teams and just facing Patrick Mahomes. It's like you have a pressure on you to have to score on every drive and to get big explosive plays because that's coming on the other side. Even in a season like this where it's been less of that, like at any given time, Pat will just turn it on and put up some points. So the defense, the offense from the other team is there's a lot of pressure on them to really step up and perform and kind of. The way that Steve Spagnuolo, we've talked about it, how he almost kind of plays defense like an offense, where he is getting the opposing team to do what he wants them to do. He's setting these edges and getting these different matchups, like specifically to control what the offense is doing. Like it's not like you're reacting. It's like they are on offense, essentially on defense with some of the looks they give, the matchups, the pressures, the blitzes. Brock Purdy was not having a good day back there. And Spags didn't, I don't even think Spags really even dialed up that crazy of a game, but the things that he was doing to him, the different packages that he was putting in, it was getting to him. It was really affecting Brock and the whole offensive chemistry of how that offense has been together for a very long time. And it just didn't have, obviously you have Debo who's not in there for most of the time and Brandon Ayuk gets injured halfway through, but a lot of guys who have a lot of chemistry with each other who just couldn't get it to put together one way or the other because of how this defense plays them.
So, couple pieces to the different things that you both have just talked about. Tom going through the run defense, and he didn't even list the best run defending person at the second level. Nick Bolton's the best run defender at that second level, pure run defender at the second level.
Oh, yeah.
Now, that isn't to say that when Leo is asked to do things, Leo doesn't do it because he's been doing everything he's asked to all year. But Nick is the best pure run defender at the second level of this defense and sets up and calls the defense. That same boat, they don't have to worry about being dictated to as you guys are talking about. With a lot of the times, offenses tend to dictate what a defense does by their formations and their movements and whatnot. And Spags seems to have adapted the personality of Andy and co. of we're going to determine what you do and we're going to make you do what we want you to do. You can come in with a game plan and you can come in and do with what you like to do. And I intend on ruining it in any way and any shape or form that I can. And I really don't care what I have to do to ruin it. I'm willing to use anyone, anywhere on this defense. We've been asking for weeks where Jaden Hicks is.
Yeah.
And he gets a pick.
Brock Purdy found him.
Yeah. Thanks to George Karlaftis.
George Karlaftis smoked him, and Brock Purdy threw it right to him.
Brock Purdy was still a pretty bad throw, even if he doesn't get his arm hit. But,
yeah, it wasn't great. Wasn't a great decision. It was probably still a pick.
Chris Conley did not have a chance. Shout out Chris Conley. He did not have a chance.
Christopher Roland Wallace. Somebody who Charles Goldman had to tell people was on this roster and was a real person at one point earlier this year on this show.
USC.
Has an interception. Granted, both of those dudes have more picks than Trent McDuffie in a hilarious twist of fate.
Yeah, Trent McDuffie, lockdown corner, does not have a career interception yet, though.
But to the point, Garrett, what Patrick does for this defense is allows them freedom.
Yeah.
And now they've built the talent and the depth. And, oh, by the way, they're extremely young. You mentioned that this defense seems to get better year after year, and it doesn't seem to take them as long. Yeah, because they all know it. And they're only adding a guy or two, and they all teach that guy everything that each one of them knows as fast as they physically can. And they're all on the same page. I've talked about Spags for years and his want to be able to amoeba his fronts and amoeba. And I said, eventually he's going to get to the point where he can put anybody in the front 7 anywhere he wants. We're here. He's doing it.
This is it, and this is
Leo
what it
Chenal
looks
is
like.
playing 1 tech and 3 tech. Felix Anadike-Uzama, a speed edge rusher, supposedly, is lining up inside over the nose like he's Charles Omenihu or Chris Jones. Chris Jones picked Trent Williams on a big 3rd down and said, "Nah, big fella, let's dance party." Okay? This defense can do whatever they want, and they can rotate whoever they want into it. Now, with some of the younger guys that don't have as much experience, or there's some learning lessons still, like you don't have help to the outside when you're in what appears to be quarters coverage as a corner. Yes, yeah, that happens. I'm guessing he didn't think they were in quarters, judging by his reaction to that play. And you guys know what I'm talking about, we're talking about Nazi on that deep ball.
Nazi,
but this is what we've been begging for years, was to just have a functional defense, and it's now the defense.
It is the defense for sure. Yeah. So
they are carrying this team around right now in a backpack.
Yeah, they're definitely the most fun aspect of this team to watch, and one of the more fun defense that we've had to watch in a very long time in Kansas City. So that's a very, very welcoming and satisfying thing to have, especially when the offense
they can just figure out how to cover a tight end. We'd be even better.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the one thing. Before we hop over to the offensive side, we do have to do some housekeeping on the defense. Unfortunately,
I don't want to talk about it.
Midway through the game, Jalen Watson, he actually went down twice. He had I believe the first time he went down with cramps, and then the second time he got his ankle stepped on. It has been confirmed that's a fractured ankle that will probably knock him out the rest of the season. Maybe he makes a return for the playoffs. But yeah, Jalen Watson, the cornerback 2 the whole year, we've talked about him on here, just played really well, really lived up to that role, as a guy who the Chiefs needed someone to step up into that CB2 role this year, and Jalen Watson did that pretty well. I mean, he took control of that role and was becoming a very solid cover corner in the NFL and locking down some legit dudes.
Go look at the charts that are out for the cover. He's in the top right quadrant with all the other big boys when it comes to really top end corner play this year.
Yeah.
He's been excellent. So this is a big time.
Definitely a big loss. And we alluded to Nazi a little bit earlier. He'll probably be the next man up as far as that cornerback 2 role. Still got Josh Williams. You have Christian Roland Wallace and a couple other guys that will kind of get some looks, but just got to have some guys step up and fill in that void now, which is we've got a lot of that on offense, and now unfortunately we got another key playmaker on the defense going down. So not ideal. Definitely not ideal.
Yeah, no, it's a big loss. I was laughing to myself at the idea of Brett Veach trading back for L'Jarius Sneed from the Titans for like a 5th, because it feels like that's the kind of where we're at.
They probably don't want him.
Hey, that's not really working out for you, bud. You want to pay some of his contract and give him back? we'll give you some capital back.
Send Treylon, and no, he went to IR. I can't send Treylon Burks anymore.
I tell you what, they have a need for wide receiver. We have a 2nd round draft pick at wide receiver. He was drafted above George Pickens. I think Sky Moore could be
perfect.
We'll get more into the offense here before
I'm just saying I don't know who the Tennessee Titans GM is, or even who their head coach is.
They don't know who the Tennessee Titans
GM I'll get Marcus Mariota on the phone, because that was the last time they were in the playoffs. And it will say, listen, Marcus, how you feel about a Sky Moore L'Jarius Sneed swap, but you got to pay the rest of Sneed's contract. Deal?
Hey, that's Washington Commanders Marcus Mariota to you, by the way.
I'll say the Titans might still want Mariota right now instead of their current options.
And we say all that, but he did have that. Yeah, we can't talk about the fact that they got that one.
The helmet caveat. Anyway, I do have one more thing before we switch over to the offensive side of the football. On the Shanahan, Purdy, all that note. I've been watching professional football for a real long time, and I know that the beat reporter who reported this is not everybody's favorite beat reporter out in San Francisco. He's ruffled some feathers out there before with certain things. But Grant Cohn literally tweeted on Sunday after the game that Shanahan walked to Purdy's locker after the press conference and lectured him for about 5 minutes. He talked the whole time. Purdy just sat there and listened, and then Shanahan walked away. Man, that feels a whole lot like a high school quarterback being chastised by a head coach or a college quarterback. Does that strike you as a pro football conversational locker room thing, Tom?
That strikes me as
ungood, not great, problematic. Now, the other report is from David Lombardi on a similar thing. After his pressure, Kyle Shanahan stopped by Purdy's locker, had a prolonged chat, ended with a big handshake. Now,
a firm handshake.
Cohn's response was it wasn't a chat. Shanahan talked and Purdy listened. There was no reciprocation of conversation. So, pick and choose who you want to believe there. But either way, that's usually not great optically in the locker room in front of. I mean, I could be wrong, but that sounds like Mr. Shanahan might have some issues in his locker room.
I don't want to kick. Actually, yeah, I do. I take it back. I do want to kick them while they're down. Okay, I think Kyle Shanahan's an overrated head coach.
There we go.
I think on some offenses that are just absolutely loaded with talent and benefited from some good minds around him. And I'm not saying his scheme isn't effective, but he's following very much in his father's footsteps in the sense that he has a great scheme at producing offensive production. However, when it comes down to it, down to the wire, it's. I don't know if I can
only
say that.
play one way.
First episode back, I'm going to say it. You know what Cinderella did when she got to the ball? Same thing Kyle Shanahan does every fourth quarter. They choke.
Pumpkin alert? Pumpkin alert, huh?
Do what?
Pumpkin alert, huh?
No, they choke. You think about it for a minute, Kyle. You'll get it.
I got it.
And there goes an explicit tag for the
it was an explicit insinuation. You'll have to still have to read between the lines. Kyle Shanahan
got that clutch.
We can borrow those lines. Here's the thing. This is also where I'll point to the difference between Patrick Mahomes and Brock Purdy. No disrespect to Brock Purdy, good football player. He had some beautiful throws. And maybe it's not even fair because I don't know Brock Purdy in the locker room. I don't know that situation. I know that Andy Reid is going to talk with Patrick Mahomes more than he's ever going to talk at him. And I also know that Patrick Mahomes is going to listen and absorb that and have those conversations back. So, yes, I think there's a culture issue. And when you are giving that conversation and you're having that lecture type of talk in a setting where people can view it, as a leader, you have to be more mindful of the optics, but also you have to have some more respect for your players. To me, that sounds like somebody who is putting a lot of blame on a individual. And yes, Brock Purdy threw 3 interceptions, but you know what? That defensive scheme was really hard to match up against. There was a lot of injuries. When you listen to Reid talk and you listen to Patrick Mahomes talk, the first thing that both of those guys will always say in any setting is, I have to do better. And that is a culture statement. And it starts with Andy, and it has trickled down to Patrick, although I think Patrick's always had a little bit of that in him. But even when Patrick was talking about his post-game stuff and the interceptions, he said, some of it's luck, but at the end of the day, I have to do better, right? Xavier Worthy got tripped up, went down. That's still I gotta put him in a better position. The ball gets tipped. He's looking at Jordy. He goes, yeah, but I could have angled it different. He takes his responsibility, even if it's not his responsibility to take, right? He could have said, these things happen, no big deal. And it would have been a true statement. But he said, nope, I want to do better. Andy, all the time, he says, when they ask about a specific player, he'll say things like, yeah, I got to put him in a better position. We'll coach him up. We'll get him right. We believe in the player. There's never a message, at least not, in a public setting, of lack of faith. If anything, Andy goes back to players and supports them and gives them opportunities. And we talked about some of the people they've brought back. McCole Hardman is one of the most controversial players in the Chiefs have had in 5 to 10 years because of the drafting time and all that stuff. And they've always been able to, they've always looked at him, given him chances, and more often than not, and this is coming from somebody who is not a McCole fan, I'm not against him or anything, but was not, I struggled with that because I was a DK guy. But more often than not, he's produced, and he's produced big. So I think culture-wise, Kyle needs to grow up and not point fingers. Kyle Shanahan, not our Kyle. He's fine. He can point fingers all he wants. He's got
I always found it kind of interesting when, you have those head coaches who are like, hey, Kyle Shanahan's a little bit younger, right? And also he's like, touted as this big, like, offensive mastermind, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, almost feels like just a lot of ego when you kind of look at those situations. And it's not as much like, you really got to, like, it's great that you're an offensive mastermind, but like when you come to leading your team and having those honest conversations with guys and like getting them motivated and just, I don't know. I always felt like, especially, some of those younger coaches like him, like Mike McDaniel, I feel like in Miami is kind of a similar thing. It's like some of these guys, they're great offensive coordinators and play calls and all that stuff. But when it comes to doing the right things by your team and just little things like that, I don't know. They're great coaches and they got great teams still, but it's just a very different approach than what the Chiefs have with Andy. It's just like, the only thing Andy's going to call him a master of is eating burgers, probably. Like that's what Andy Reid would call himself a master of. He's not a mastermind, even though he is. Like he's not rolling it like that. He's there for the team and he looks out for his guys, and it's more like a father figure type role, which I think is more beneficial in some of those environments.
I brought that up for two reasons. One is a lot of what you guys just discussed. The other is when we talk, whenever you the mastermind conversation. He's a guru at the offense.
Mm-hmm.
Gurus at offense are gurus at offense that know how to use any player to what that player does. It's what Andy does best.
Yeah.
You're good at this. I'm gonna have you do these things. You're not good at this. I'm not going to have you do that. Here's the difference between Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan in the guru category. Kyle Shanahan's system has to be the thing. He cannot adapt that system to his players. The players have to fit his system, because if they don't, they're not good. They cannot throw the football in a traditional manner. He cannot do it. I don't know how many times that has to be proven. If they can't run the ball, they suck. And it ain't the quarterback, because they've tried this crap with Jimmy Garoppolo, Nick Mullins, Brock Purdy. How many other...
You throw in Trey Lance in there.
Trey Lance? We don't even talk about the fact that they traded up...
Traded like 3 first-round picks.
That dude's a friggin' fourth stringer for the Cowboys, and they stink.
Yeah.
And that was like 3 years ago that they took Trey Lance. So, I'm sorry, but miss me with the guru. Tom's 100% correct. He's overrated. He has been for a long time. And you know why? Because his daddy's name is Shanahan too.
It's genetic, though, because it was the same thing until he got Elway.
Yeah, the nepotism.
Listen, I know Elway's
drug in
too,
the NFL. Yeah, the nepotism thing in the NFL is real in a lot of instances, and it happens in real life, as in day-to-day life too. Nepotism runs rampant everywhere. It's part of human nature. It's going to happen. But to sit there and pretend that Kyle Shanahan is some god of the offense, does anybody remember what happened in Atlanta? When he was the offensive coordinator, we've forgotten that they were up 25 points in a Super Bowl
28-3
and couldn't score for the rest of the game, pretty much. He's 0-5 now, I believe, against the Chiefs in his tenure, with, like I said, 3 or 4 different quarterbacks at the helm throughout that time period.
Yeah, I believe so.
Psychologically,
they are loaded with talent on the offensive side of the ball, and they can't get it done.
Psychologically, the toughness isn't there. And I really think Chiefs fans should probably talk more trash towards the 49ers. Because you think about it, like the Bengals fans have, like, it's almost an even score at this point. And they talk trash all the time, unnecessarily. Like that's all they talk about is the Chiefs.
Well,
why need bashing the 49ers? Oh, that's.
I mean, it's one of those.
We got championships. We got other things to talk about. Sorry,
it's also one of those things. It's not a rivalry if the other team doesn't win.
They've literally not won since 2014.
Yeah.
Like
the
what
Eagles,
is there to discuss?
I feel like the Eagles, we have more of a rivalry against than the Niners.
And their rivalry is from one regular season win, and their coach was an idiot. Like,
yeah, they have one win over us. So that's yeah. So safe to say the Chiefs, I think, have it pretty good, and we should appreciate Big Red and everything.
I said this Sunday, that little exchange in the locker room with Shanahan and his "we got our ass kicked" quote at the press conference, and basically the "I want to burn the tape" thing, told me all I needed to know. That's a broken team. We see them again in the Super Bowl, man. I don't even know if I'm gonna.
I mean, if you want to
breathe heavy, that's a broken football team. Mentally,
if you want to compare situations, like
they're physically broken right now too, with the injury report being longer than a Cheesecake Factory menu. But they're mentally not having it with the Chiefs either.
Yeah, and if you kind of
if you want a microcosm,
to the
Trent
Chiefs,
Williams punching Brian Cook in the head is a good example.
That was funny. If you want to compare it to the Chiefs, though, like if you think back to last year around Christmas Day when the Chiefs lost to the Raiders and they looked more broken than ever, and how do you think Andy Reid responded to that? How do you all of those guys took
We didn't
full
shoot Patrick's ass in his locker for 5 minutes. I know that.
These silly reports like that. Like it's just, there's a difference to these things. There's levels to this stuff, and Chiefs are on another level. Let's say that. So moving over to the offensive side of the football for the Chiefs, which is the less fun side of the ball to talk about, but arguably it was still kind of fun.
I enjoyed several portions of that offense.
I mean, the Chiefs scored 4 touchdowns on offense. Like
they broke 27 points.
Yeah, they broke their 27-point curse. They got 28. Kareem Hunt had 2 touchdowns,
but they did beat it.
Yeah, exactly. Kareem Hunt had 2. Mecole Hardman, who me and Kyle talked about, that was a lock that he was going to have a big game, and he did.
I tried to. I'm sorry that some of the sports books decided to be absolute AHs and not actually put lines out for him. But I also know why they didn't, because they would have gotten beat up.
They would have got hosed. Yeah, they would have got hosed. I mean, they probably knew that. Mecole Hardman,
I did give you the anytime touchdown score. Though.
Yeah, which cashed. But yeah, Mecole Hardman, whenever he plays the 49ers, just turns into Jerry Rice. It seems like
they gotta think that dude is gonna be in the Hall of Fame one day. Niners fans have to think, Niners fans, HOFer.
Niners fans are gonna have nightmares about Mecole Hardman, and they're probably the only ones who ever will. So that is saying something.
I know we're recording and talking about the Chiefs, but I just happened to turn my head around and notice that the Ravens are down 10 to the Bucs right now at the end of the first quarter.
Couldn't be. Hey, if it was
keeping track of an opponent who's supposed to be able to beat us now that we've already beaten them in week 1, according to some national pundits like Emmanuel Acho, and the team we're playing on Monday night after we play the Raiders. So just figured I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, if that were Patrick Mahomes in that situation, you already know the outcome of that game would be down 10-0. Yeah. So yeah, the offense for the Chiefs. Obviously, the first few drives, like we talked about, wasn't very good. The play calling in that first drive, I remember being very, very bad. You have an early interception from Patrick Mahomes where a offensive or a defensive lineman tips the ball and it gets ricocheted up and he catches it. Not really Pat's fault necessarily, just kind of an unfortunate thing. But they eventually started to kind of figure things out around the second quarter. Finally got some points on the board. They got 2 touchdowns in the second quarter, actually. So Kareem Hunt, 22 carries for 78 yards. They were running him pretty good. It wasn't anything crazy of an offensive performance. And, there's a lot of ups and downs. But initial thoughts, Tom, on this offense so far. And really the offense that we've seen, throughout this whole first part of the season.
So it's got to be annoying for teams because this is the part when we talked about Patrick Mahomes as like this enigmatic, when he was taking the league by storm and, blowing up monster stats, monster games, doing all these things that we've never seen him do before. We talked about him being able to be consistent and efficient and those types of numbers. And I'm looking for the tweet. I'm sure Kyle will find it first. But when we look at this offense right now, that's
Are you
banged
talking about
up.
the Brett Coleman tweet?
Probably.
Now
That's
I'm annoyed that
banged
you've
up.
seen it.
Yeah. Yep. That's hurt. That's lacking some of that the synergy. Word of the day that the defense is experiencing. They have relied on efficiency. So yes, here it is, the Brett Coleman tweet.
Don't
10
do
hours
it.
ago.
I've got because now you've seen. This is the tweet that I wanted to get people's reaction to that you haven't. We talked about pre-show, except you've already seen it. I'm assuming Garrett hasn't
so
seen
we'll talk
it yet.
about that in a moment. Efficiency is the name of the game, and here's the thing: while they're building those efficiency, I anticipate this happening as the season goes on. They're going to end up lulling some of these teams to sleep. And then all of a sudden they're going to remember, hey, Travis Kelce's on this team. Hey, Xavier Worthy is on this team. Hey, McCole Hardman, pretty fast football player. Juju's going to get right. There's some other guys. I understand the concern. Yeah, I concern about the concern about wide receiver. I do, and I get that. But I think some of this is an evolution of, hey, right now we're just going to play winning, consistent football. The main goal right now is, of course, to get into the playoffs, but we care about seeding. That bye week makes a difference, especially when you have guys like Travis Kelce and Chris Jones, who at that point in the season, I mean, everybody's banged up at that point in the season. That bye week is worth a lot for this team. It's the strategy of playing the whole season. It's not the most exciting. Yeah, we want to see, 50-yard bombs to Xavier Worthy every week. Nobody wants that more than Garrett Williams. I promise. There's not a man on the planet who wants to see nothing but spam Hail Marys to number one. But right now, look, he's in the corner. He's
right next to Kyle's head. Get that guy the rock.
Oh, I see. I'm gone for a couple of weeks, and you replace me. I see how it is. I should have seen this coming. So the efficiency piece is that there's another part of that tweet that I really want to talk about, but I'm just going to leave it at efficiency and fundamentals. Fundamental football. We are right now. It's not Michael Jordan. This is Steve Nash. This is Dirk Ball. This is we are playing some goal, get down in the post, back them up, hook it in. And it's not the most exciting style of offense, but it gets the job done. Shout out to Kareem Hunt for being our I don't know what the NBA equivalent here would be, but he's been the big part of that efficiency piece.
Derek Fisher.
I was going to say Rodman for those Bulls teams, but yeah.
Ooh, Rodman. There we go. Rodman. There we go. That's perfect. There we go. We got Rodman. Yeah, I like it.
We have some basketball knowledge
Let's
here.
not tie the character concerns together, okay? We'll leave those comparisons alone.
How long until Kareem Hunt is in North Korea?
I was gonna say how long until he needs 48 hours in Vegas with Carmen Electra, but that's a separate thing again. So we'll go ahead and get into the tweet, Garrett.
Yeah.
I need to do this because Tom's already seen the tweet, and I
think I've seen the tweet too.
I'm sure you probably have at this point. So I wanted to get initial reactions. We talked pre-show. I didn't tell them what the tweet was because I just wanted to see their reactions to it.
Though. Yeah.
But this offense has been so bad, guys. It's just been so terrible. It's been so terrible that they are currently 4th in positive EPA percentage. Yeah, that's the tweet.
There's the tweet.
7th in scoring drive percentage for the audio audience that is not watching on YouTube. If you would like, subscribe, comment, share, fun things. 7th in scoring drive percentage, 4th lowest punt percentage. Now, some of that has to do probably with a few of the turnover things that have happened. And then the 2nd fewest plays that go for no gain or a loss. If they snap the ball, they're going forward, generally.
Right.
So, while they've been not the greatest show on turf that they used to do at the beginning, they've also are currently, might I remind some folks, without the people that were in training camp, the starting wide receiver, the second wide receiver, you can put that title on whichever one of those two individuals you would like. Hollywood or Rasheed, 1, 2, 2, 1, 1A, 1B, I don't care. Both out. Their number 1 running back
out.
And on top of all of that, they've had question marks and banged up and some issues at the offensive tackle position during that whole time, which we'll talk about again because that reared its head at the beginning of this game and then got much better as the game progressed.
Mm-hmm.
I think help might have factored in there on that part. But this is a team that, God, they're so bad, they're still actually pretty decent on offense.
Yeah, those are some very interesting
And Patrick
stats.
has played the worst season of his career to date through 6 games by a country mile. And the back-to-back defending Super Bowl champions are undefeated. Now, again, largely because of their defense, but they're still scoring mid-20s and up every game. And when your defense doesn't give up 20, it's a real good recipe to win football games.
Yeah, it definitely gives you more leeway on that. The most interesting stat in those is the second fewest plays that go for no gain or loss. Like that's a pretty underrated one that I feel like it's lost a lot is, you know, if you're still making positive plays, like you might only get 2 or 3 yards on a play, but it's better than having to fall back and then you're behind the sticks and you're kind of out of sync. Like the Chiefs, you know, they definitely find a way to move the ball forward in very, very frequent situations. Now, the 4th lowest punt percentage, some of that comes because of the fact that they have a lot of turnovers. So you're not
and they score a lot of points.
Yeah, so that was the thing. It's like they're either scoring a point or they're turning it over, but they're not punting. So it's like it's not the worst thing in the world, you know. So yeah, it is very interesting to see some of those stats, the scoring drive percentage.
It doesn't feel like that when we watch the games because we're
really
used to watching them burn cities to the ground with their offense.
But also, once again, you know, we talk about this offensive performance versus the 49ers, and yeah, it didn't seem super cohesive throughout the whole game, and yet they, like I said, they still scored 4 touchdowns. Like
you talked about the first drive. You talked about the first drive, and I know you keep saying it was bad play calling. I don't know that it was bad play calling. It felt disjointed.
Yeah,
somewhat,
that was most things. Yeah,
but also I think some of it felt disjointed because some of the oddness and the randomness of football, because that's not a round ball. It does odd things when it's touched or tipped or hit. It bounces funny. So some of it's not always going to feel smooth and easy, especially because, hey, I know the Niners haven't been great this year and that defense is beat up, but they've seen the Chiefs plenty. We just talked about how many times they played, so they're familiar. Now, new defensive coordinator, Garrett and I talked about that on the last episode. It turns out I was right about that subject also, because guess what? First time as a defensive coordinator against Andy Reid, not so much fun for your first day on the job.
Not fun.
But one thing that's very interesting to me with this offensive performance is they were definitely a little bit more creative, and they did get yards this game a little bit differently than they have in the past. You know,
you mean what? Like the snap with Carson Wentz, Patrick Mahomes, Kareem Hunt, and Travis Kelce all in the backfield and stance.
In a normal red zone shenanigans from Andy Reid that he likes to pull out. But I'm talking like, you know, Patrick Mahomes had 5 carries for 39 yards, including that 33-yard rush that was the longest of his career. You know, McCole Hardman had 2 carries for 38 yards. You know, Carson Steele had 17 yards.
Like, that Mahomes
I believe they had 180 yards rushing throughout for the whole team, and it's like only 78 of that came from Kareem Hunt, so they had a whole 100 more yards of rushing that just came from other guys getting the ball in their hands. So definitely a very creative way that they kind of got things done on offense. Obviously, feeding McCole was a big factor. Getting Kareem involved very frequently was a big factor, and then, you know, they just capitalized on some of those opportunities. Obviously, when the defense has 3 interceptions, like you have to capitalize and score on some of those things. Also, very underratedly, McCole Hardman's big punt return that set him up for just a huge play in a crucial situation that flips the momentum.
He does that. It seems like often.
Oh yeah. I would say, especially versus the 49ers, he's going to do that. But yeah, there wasn't, like I said, Patrick Mahomes still had 2 interceptions. It was kind of fluky ones, but they did a pretty good job of minimizing the mistakes.
They didn't fumble, and he didn't make a throw that made me put my hands on my head.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The 2 interceptions weren't like, oh my goodness, you know, it's like
they were
very fell. Like,
but this somewhat goes back to what we were talking about 30 minutes ago now. When it comes to the pressure that Mahomes and this team puts on this offense puts on the other team, even when they're playing poorly, you better bury them.
You better.
Because if you leave them close at all. If he can see you on the field, if he can sniff the point differential, you're in trouble when it comes down to it. Because
And whatever you do, don't
they
go
think,
down by 10.
well, here's the thing. They think
Don't
he's
go
going to
up.
make the play. He thinks he's going to make the play. And the other team thinks he's going to make the play. When the other team is like, hey, man, I don't know if we can actually stop this dude, even though he's not played well all day. And then they get down to when it really matters, and it's like, yeah, but it's still that guy. And every time it's time for that kind of stuff, he ruins our day. And guess what? He did it again and again and again.
Yeah.
And this time, he's got him complaining about changing the rules again. Like,
Yeah,
Well,
silly.
you remember,
this is the Steph
Yes.
Curry, Michael Jordan changing the fundamental basis of the sport type
it's
player.
Peyton Manning. It's Peyton Manning and the Patriots. It's
That's
you know,
Tom
they
Brady, yes.
or Tom Brady. Well, no, because it was
Tuck
Peyton
rule.
Manning and the Colts
Tuck
who really
rule.
drove.
Yeah, I know.
Who
Tuck
drove
rule,
the
all the
rule
Manning
change about
stuff.
pass
Yeah.
interference and force outs and some other stuff. But
Yeah.
I mean, so the stats, and again, this is where it's like, it's almost like we're hitting, you know, it's a different level for Mahomes. He still has all that. Like when he did the little the shovel pass, like that was like what 10,
Yeah.
11 yards downfield, and even Tom Brady went, "Holy crap!"
Yeah,
When
that
you
was
have Tom
a
Brady
long
going,
shovel
"Holy!"
pass.
I'm not convinced, and I tweeted this. I'm not convinced that Mahomes can't pitch a bowling ball. I think if you put him on the mound and you gave him an 8-pound ball, I think he could get it to home plate. I think he'd figure it out. Give him about 15 minutes to warm up. I think he gets it there. But it's that run. It's that 33-yard run. It's the little things. It's, you know, Andy said it in the post game. Or I'm sorry, not Andy. It was Tom Brady during the game. He says Patrick Mahomes sees the field and has a vision like no other. If you guys, for my fans and friends who love Madden, if you remember the when Madden was actually good and they had the vision cone,
Yeah,
right?
the vision cone.
And Peyton Manning's was huge and Tom Brady's was huge.
And
you know,
certain guys was the size of.
I should probably be careful about going his was
light.
huge and doing this with my hands, but
Yeah, nobody will ever do anything with that on the internet. No.
Yep. There we go. It's like Patrick's vision cone is just 360. Like he knows what's happening in front of him. He knows where the sideline is. He's watching behind him. The man is that is so he's all the physical. Like he's a lot of physical tools, but it's that mental awareness that really, really is special and not talked about enough, I think, in part of his game, because there's so many other fun things to talk about with Patrick Mahomes. It's fun to have Patrick Mahomes on your football.
You can throw it 70 yards. You can always be a half a step faster than the other guy who's chasing you, Fred Warner. You can do all those things. But as Tom just said, and this is something my whole life, I've been pretty lucky growing up with the sports that I've grown up with the players that I've watched and chosen to watch and really been a fan of. The best hockey player to ever put on a pair of skates was not the biggest guy, was not the fastest guy, wasn't the strongest on the puck, didn't have the most insane hands of them all. He was the smartest guy on the rink by a country mile. He knew 10 seconds before where the puck was going, before it got there. Wayne Gretzky wasn't bigger or stronger or more beastly than everybody else. He was just hockey smarter than you. And he had plenty of skills to ruin your day once he was already ahead of you. LeBron James knows everything that is going to happen on a basketball court. He can pass the ball anywhere he chooses, anywhere up the 94 feet of that court at any given time when the ball is in his hand. It's why he's a 6'8" power forward who plays point guard. Like, when you are into it's one of the reasons Tom Brady was able to play football at a stupidly high level for 25 years in the NFL or whatever it was.
Strongest or fastest, yeah.
No, you've seen the pictures. You know what?
Yeah,
I think the power's in the dad bod, because Tom Brady had a dad bod coming out of Michigan and it never went anywhere.
Yep.
And Patrick has the dad bod. And yet, guess what? There's nothing you can do about it when he chooses to put it on. And the sideline play, is a microcosm of the entire thing we're talking about. He beats Fred freaking Warner to the corner when it's him and Fred one-on-one. He beat him around the edge. And the most expensive, best linebacker in football. Nope, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
On the way through the sideline, he's going to go out of bounds until he sees Kareem Hunt get a block right when he's at the marker that everybody seems to think was him fake stepping out of bounds, which is hilarious.
No, Kareem Hunt blocked him.
Dwight Freeney out on making himself look not great on Kay Adams' show today with some takes like that. And several other people that have a whole lot of football knowledge that I respect looking real dumb because they're watching the broadcast camera angle, not the 22 or the other angle where Kareem Hunt very clearly blocks the guy that overruns Patrick. And you know what would have stopped the rest of that from happening? If number 90 from the Niners wasn't basically walking to the sideline and then also gets blocked by Kareem Hunt so that Patrick can run for another 15 yards down the sideline, just like the Tennessee Titans game several years ago.
Yeah, it had shit. I thought he was going to take it to the house. I really thought, I was like, is he going? Is he going all the way? I didn't realize it was so far out. That's why I was like,
then you get down to that point, they do 3 more plays, it's 4th down and goal, and instead of a quarterback sneak, we run a quarterback design draw. You cannot tell me that was not a quarterback draw play. He barely let them get out of their stances before he decided he was going to run that ball in. And then what happens? He destroys the safety who has been blowing people up. Mustafa smoked Xavier Worthy earlier in that game.
He had some really good. He had a couple of really good plays.
He smoked multiple dudes in this game.
He stuffed Kareem Hunt pretty good on the run to the left. Yeah.
And shout out to that guy because I loved his tweet too.
He was
mad respect to him.
Yeah.
Mad respect to him for that. Good sense of humor, whole thing. Rookie had a sense of humor.
Yeah.
He was Wake Forest. He was a good kid. He was a fun kid to watch.
But I'm telling you right now, I bet you Mike Florio doesn't think they need to hit him now. Because when you put a guy who, and by the way, if you've seen that dude without his shirt on, the guy that he put on his back, he looks like he's chiseled out of stone.
Yeah.
Did you guys hear what Patrick said in the post game about that moment? He said he was trying to absorb the hit, sir. Yeah, he was being humble about it. He goes, "No, I lowered my shoulder once against Iowa State." But he said, "I think the dad bod won on that one."
yeah, it did.
That dad bod don't budge. I tell you what, that dad bod don't budge.
That photo is gonna go. That's another one of those where we're gonna have. Like every artist in the kingdom is going to have a print version of that.
Like this,
that man's feet are up by Patrick's ear, and Patrick's foot is in his chest while he's laying on the ground.
That was.
And it didn't even look like he was running that hard when he hit him. Meanwhile, the safety was flying because most of the time when you're the safety and you get to take a shot on the quarterback like that, guess what? It's a nice thing for the safety. Not that time. And that's not the first 49ers defender that's found that out the hard way. Because I'll end the conversation with this. There's an NFL mic'd up moment. You got to hit me. I'm told you got to fucking hit me. Well, hit me. Hit that and find out what it's like to hit that. Good luck.
Yep. So.
Pause. Okay. All right.
Sorry. I did that on purpose.
Okay.
That was intentional.
Right. Couple other.
Remember our innuendos walking that line? We were doing earlier, just keeping the theme of the episode.
Yeah, we're all back in the saddle on that.
Keeping the theme of the episode.
We're almost at that hour mark. Garrett's got some housekeeping to do. Let's do this.
Okay, so we talked a lot about the offense. Offense, okay day. Couple other quick things we got to note. Noah Gray, 4 catches for 66 yards. He had a really good day.
Leading receiver.
Yeah. He did not get very much attention from the 49ers defense, which
they kept running around with Travis, leaving him butt naked in the middle of the field.
More focused on Travis. There was that. Xavier Worthy had 3 catches for 19 yards. A couple other things.
He also had 9 targets. Now that part's not great, but that's also. I know everybody's really like, wow, how did that happen? Why does he only have? How does this? Okay, he had 9 targets. They won by 10. They were up by 16 until like a minute left. When
Exactly.
Patrick Mahomes gets to work on chemistry with his players during regular season games like it's a freaking preseason scrimmage in August, because I'll be real honest, the second Juju went out, you looked at Patrick, he threw the ball like 6 straight times.
Yeah, he did start looking Xavier's way. Yeah.
He was like, "Nah, we're just going to figure this out today. Whatever it takes. I don't care. We're just going to keep doing it. It doesn't matter because Kareem can run it for 3.5 yards a carry. So as long as we get that, I really don't care what we do on the rest of it. And if really it comes down to it, I'll just run somebody else over again if I need it."
Yeah.
So if I know that everybody's a little agitated with the offense and with the injuries and with the pieces missing and with the stuff, but guys, again, it's not even Thanksgiving. We're not even in November yet.
Yeah, it's not even real
They're
football.
They're just doing things. This is the normal. We do this every single year.
Yeah.
They are ramping up. They want to peak at the right time. This is not 2018 where they came out and burnt the house down to begin with, and then because the defense couldn't tie their shoes, they lost in the AFC Championship game. But this is how they do things. When he actually gets everything on track and when they actually get all on the same page, because remember, we just talked earlier about this offense missing, 3/4 of its main weaponry from training camp.
Yep.
At that point, good luck.
Yeah. So she's unfortunately going to be missing Juju Smith-Schuster for at least next week. He exited the game pretty early with a hamstring injury that popped up during practice. So he's already out for next week. Hopefully he'll be good in the next couple of weeks. But the Chiefs are going to have a little bit of a wide receiver problem. We're going to have to, we'll talk about that more next episode. My last thought from the offense was the fact that it did seem like, in that third, fourth quarter when they were up by, like Kyle said, like 16 or something at one point, they did a pretty good job of just keeping the chains moving and not really relaxing. We've seen the Chiefs many times kind of get a little lazy and add a few more punts there and kind of make it closer. It seemed like they, even when they had a good lead, they were really moving the chains well and still focusing on playing good football and didn't really take the foot off the gas necessarily. So that was really, really good to see as far as like a core fundamental thing that they'll have to rely on later this year. It's good that they still, decided to keep playing offense and then just fall asleep during that time. So any other last final thoughts from you two as before we get out of here?
I mean, I have one or two, but I spent the last 15 minutes ranting. So,
Tom, anything else from this game? What was the last big takeaway? What do you think?
I really do think McCole Hardman hates the 49ers more than most. I just.
Yep.
They ran corn dog again, and they did. And they missed it.
Yeah.
No, Patrick missed him by like a half a step. Just out in front of his hand a little.
In the post game too. He said, McCole slipped and he should have waited. It wasn't the same play; it was the same motion.
Because it's pretty close.
And it was interesting. What he said about that was they ran that motion because of how the 49ers defense responds to motion like that. I was like,
popped off.
That's very similar to the Eagles.
They've done some work on those things. There's a lot I would say. It's to be patient. Again, we're 6-0. We're the only team left undefeated in the league. Yeah. And we look messy. We're out here putting C- C+ games. Enjoy it, guys. We talked about that last year all the time. Enjoy it. And they are. And here's the other thing: they're on a mission, and they've been on a mission. This mission started the second the clock hit 0 in the last Super Bowl. And the coolest thing is, and I'm gonna get it in one more time. Phrasing, synergy. There is synergy in this mission for the 3-peat, and that's what you want to see with a team like this. You want to see focus. You want to see, not getting into a place where they feel like they're being complacent. They're doing the hard work. They're blocking their tails off. They're doing everything they're supposed to be doing. I think. Everything they're supposed to be doing to get to that mission. So, Garrett, you got to get a dog. That's my other thought.
That's true.
We got to get a dog. Maybe just like a little one,
A little guy, yeah.
It's like a little guy.
I know. Yeah, I'm the only one without a mascot. You're right.
So, my last little bit is this: Kareem Hunt has been everything you could have asked for and more. There's something to be said about the way he has come in and the way he has accepted and handled the challenges that he has been given by this coaching staff, by this team, and by this offense. We talked about it when they signed him, that he was I've been very honest with the whole time. I don't know what he's got left. But he's going to give you whatever that is. All of it and as much as he can. Kareem Hunt has 20 or more carries in consecutive games. Isaiah Pacheco's never done that in his career.
Yeah, they're using him. They're making up for some lost time for real.
And we also just got done talking about he's making blocks on the perimeter on a Patrick scramble. He's running dudes over, we talked about the stat with the plays that go for no gain or losses. He single-handedly, I can think of on more than one hand, a number of plays where he should have been down in the backfield or for no gain and has 2 or 3 yards out of it. Positive yardage. Those things make a huge difference in the strength in the sequence of the game. The other piece I will add is your Kansas City Chiefs have a 2-game lead in the loss column on the next closest team in the entire AFC conference for home field advantage.
That's pretty good. We'll take that.
And their schedule is now headed to the easier chunk.
Easy sailing ahead. So it's looking good. It's looking good for the Chiefs. We're just gonna keep on trucking. We're gonna keep on going down the line. We got the Raiders next week. We'll be back later this week to preview that game. That's gonna be a very interesting division matchup.
Maybe I'll bring a puppet.
Yeah. There's gonna be. Listen, that's gonna get handled, and I'm sure they've got. Yeah, I'm sure that's gonna get handled very well. So with that, thank you all so much for tuning in. Be sure to follow us at Kingdom Says Pod, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcasts from. We are so happy and so grateful for you guys rocking with us all the time. Great to have Tom back in the saddle once again.
Yes, sir.
We're just going to keep on doing it. With that being said, thank you all once again for tuning in. We will see you guys on the next episode of The Kingdom Says.